Nice and wet day here on the West Coast.
Morning, Martin. Morning,
As always,
Adele,
quite
Colin,
hello.
and Commissioner.
So prepare yourself for this meeting or training session that we're going to have. Grab a cup of coffee, cup of tea, cup of soup. Whatever you need. Popcorn. We'll start at 5 past. Now.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Neil.
As everyone knows the drill by now, we will get kicked off at 10:05. So if you haven't gotten a coffee or anything now, now's your chance to go grab one, and we'll see you guys shortly. Just in case anyone is wondering why there is a shared screen with no sound, we haven't started yet, guys. Right, we are just preparing ourselves ahead of time. We are going to be kicking off at 5:05. So we'll see you guys shortly. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Neil. Let me stop sharing then, and I'll start when we're ready to kick off.
Sure. Cool.
Good morning, everyone. We will start at 5:05. Go grab some tea.
All right, so welcome everybody. We're pretty much 5 past on the dot. So without further ado, let's kick off. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at ROI and growing existing customers and the importance of that. Because nothing speaks to you at an executive level more than your ROI does. All right, and we want to grow our customers, but we want to grow them accordingly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep dive into that. And we've got Rahil, our CEO, as our guest speaker here today. And he's going to take us through a little bit of knowledge improvements on that side. So thank you, Rahil, for joining us today, and over to you. You are on mute.
After all of these years, you would have thought that we would have gotten used to that by now, okay?
Yeah.
So thank you, Neil, and good morning to all of our attendees and to our customers and our users. It's a pleasure to actually be here to present this to you. So thanks for the intro, Neil. So today's session is about growing your existing customer base and why it often beats constantly pushing for new business. So as Neil mentioned, I'm Rahil Jularr, the CEO at TradeShield, and we work with companies across South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa in industries from logistics to retail to FMCG and pharmaceuticals and all sorts of different industries. And what we'll be doing in this webinar, we'll explore how focusing on your current customers can drive a superior ROI, return on investment. And this is especially relevant in today's market. Budgets are tight and acquiring new customers is costly. So we'll look at data, real case studies, and strategies to ignite growth from the customers you already have. And by the end, you'll see why a shift in mindset towards retention and expansion is not just a nice to have, but it's essential for profitable growth. So, or sustainable growth rather. Let's dive right in. So in terms of the agenda, we'll look at the ROI, the return of investment. There's going to be a lot of 3-letter acronyms that we're going to go through today, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll understand them a little bit better. So we'll look at the ROI of retention and why it outperforms new business acquisition. We'll look at a couple of those metrics that we spoke about: CSAT, NPS, CAC, LTV, GRR, and NRR. I know it sounds quite a mouthful and can be quite confusing. We're going to unpack both with definitions as well as tell you exactly what each of those are and why it matters. And we're going to look at growth strategies, how to expand and retain existing accounts. And then we'll look at data and automation, examples of tech-driven expansion. In today's modern age, it's all about technology. It's all about AI. It's all about using whatever resources are at your disposal to be able to grow your business in new, innovative, and sustainable ways. We've got a couple of real-world case studies, and then we'll talk about that mindset shift that we spoke about and the balance between chasing new business and customer-led growth. And then we'll do a bit of a recap and Q&A. So that's the agenda. Shouldn't take longer than about 40 minutes for us to get through the slides and get through the content. And that leaves us with about 20 minutes for any Q&A that anyone may have. Right, let's jump into it. So retention pays off, the ROI case. So we spoke a bit about some of those metrics that we should be looking at. And I mean, gone are the days where we just look at sales numbers, where we just look at profit at the end of the month. There's what we call leading indicators within your business that determines whether your business is doing the right things today for it to be to lead to profitability and sustainable growth in the future. So there's 2 types of metrics that we look at. We look at leading indicators and we look at lag indicators. Now, let me give you an example of the 2 different types. A leading indicator, for example, is the number of sales meetings that you have set up with customers. Because you know, if you set up 100 meetings, you're going to land up with maybe 30 deals from those meetings. You haven't yet closed it, so that's a leading indicator. A lag indicator is, I have now closed 30 deals, and that is after the fact. And so some of what we're looking at here are going to be a combination of both of them, and this is why it's so important. So the first one that we're going to look at is CAC, the customer acquisition cost. This is the cost that to your business to acquire a new customer. And do you know your CAC? You know, many businesses don't know what it costs them to acquire a customer, and therefore they cannot make decisions and they cannot see the benefit of going and upselling to existing customer base. So interestingly, there's a study that's been done by the Harvard Business Review, which shows that the customer acquisition cost has risen by as much as 60% over the last 5 to 7 years. And so what it costs you now in today's terms to win customers costs you a lot more than it did previously. And why is this? With the advent of social media and advertising, online advertising, Google ads become more expensive. You compete with other companies. LinkedIn advertising is quite a costly but worthwhile investment. And so your cost to acquire customers is just going higher and higher every year. The second important metric that we'll look at and we'll discuss is LTV, or lifetime value. Do you know your lifetime value? And how has this changed in the last 5 to 7 years? And let me give you an example. Let's say I sell to Neil. It costs me 10,000 Rand to sell to Neil. That's marketing costs. That's the commission I've got to pay. That's my sales and marketing expenses. It costs me 10,000 Rand to sell to Neil. If during Neil's lifetime, I only make 5,000 Rand out of Neil, well, then I've lost money trying to acquire the business of Neil. However, if during that period, or that Neil is a customer of mine, I make 50,000 Rand from him, well, then I've made a 5 times ROI on my customer acquisition cost. And that is an important metric. There's a CAC to LTV, customer acquisition cost to lifetime value, should be greater than 3 times. You should make 3 times the amount of money from a customer than what it costs you to acquire that customer for it to be profitable for your business. And so we get to actually the gist of the of the webinar today is it is anywhere between 5 and 25 times cheaper to retain a customer, an existing customer, than to acquire a new one. Some stats that we can go around is a 5% boost in retention of your existing customers can lead anywhere to a 25 to 95% increase in your profit. And you have, according to the Harvard Business Review, and not only as a study, for global businesses, but we see it relevant in the South African landscape as well, is there's a 60 to 70% chance of you selling to an existing customer versus a 5 to 20% for a new one. Now think about it. How many customers does your sales team go out to meet? How many credit applications do you get across your desk? How many approvals do you do? And how many of those actually result in a sale? And furthermore, how often do those result in continuous sales? And I think if you were to think about it, you'd realize that there's a lot more effort that goes into selling to new customers than there is into retaining and selling to your existing customers. Also existing customers, they trust you, they know your brand, whereas new customers require a lot of effort, marketing, sales pitches, onboarding, just to get the first sale. Interesting study also that shows that in very large enterprises, where 9 billion Rand revenue plus, which is $500,000, and I know that's a very large business, 84% of growth in those large enterprises does not come from new business. It comes from existing customers. And so these numbers, they make it quite clear that retention and expansion of your current customers can yield a dramatically better ROI than an endless pursuit of new business. Now, I just must caution, what I'm not saying is I'm not saying we should not chase new business. I'm saying that there's got to be a fine balance within your business that speaks to your business as to what your retention and expansion of your existing customer base looks like versus your chasing of new business. And it also depends on the growth stage of your business. An early startup, of course, you want to be chasing new business aggressively. You want to make sure that you're selling to as many new customers as you can. But a brand, and many of our customers are brands that are well established in the industry. They've got a very good footprint in the industry. And, therefore, new business is not as easy to come by. And when it is available, it's generally small to medium accounts. And that's why retention is such an important part of that. Okay. So now that we've spoken about a few of the, or 2 of the metrics, customer acquisition cost, CAC, and LTV, lifetime value, let's get into a few of the others. Happy customers buy more, okay? And CSAT and NPS in action, again, 2 more acronyms. So CSAT stands for customer satisfaction, and NPS stands for Net Promoter Score. Now, for some of you who may know this, seems pretty obvious. For those of you that don't, think about all of the times that you've gone and you've used an app or you've bought something from a store and you get a little email that comes up that says, how likely are you to recommend this company or my company to your friends, and it's a scale from 1 to 10. That, colleagues, is a net promoter score. And how it basically works is anyone that gives you a score of 1 to 6, they're considered what's called a detractor. They will not promote your product. A 7 and an 8 score is considered a neutral, and they feel okay about your product. They neither love it nor do they hate it. And a 9 to 10 is considered a promoter. These are people that will go and actively recommend your product, and they love your product. So the next time you get that little email at the end of it, know that there's a product manager sitting somewhere whose KPIs depends on what that NPS say. And the more information and the more data that they get around that NPS, the better decisions they can make. So for example, TradeShield, once a quarter, we send out an NPS survey. And on the back of that NPS survey, we understand, are we making customers happier? Are we maintaining the happiness of our customers, or are our customers becoming more unhappy with us? And why is that important? Well, it's very simple. A high CSAT and NPS means a higher upsell and retention. You can sell more to your existing customer base if they love your product, if they love your service. Interesting stat, and this is that NPS promoters, remember those 9 and 10 out of 10 customers, they're 3 times more likely to buy again from you. All right. Promoters, interestingly, in the B2B space, also can account for up to 60% of referrals. Think about all of your customers that you've sold to, the really big ones. How many of them have given you, when you've given them good service, they've recommended you to people in the industry or to colleagues of theirs, right? And so what we've seen from our data is our clients that have high CSAT and NPS, they outperform peers in the next metric that we're going to talk about, in NRR, net revenue retention. So in a nutshell, it's the flywheel effect. When your existing clients are successful and satisfied, they become your advocates. Not only do they spend more with you, but they also sing your praise to others, fueling low-cost acquisition because it's a warm lead. And this is basically growth that feeds itself. So happy customers buy more, and that has been proven fact in all types of industry, not only within the software or the logistics or the FMCG industry. It's all types of industry. Okay, and the last 2 metrics that are important for tracking in our business is GRR and net and NRR. So what do they mean and why do they matter? Well, this is what GRR, it stands for gross revenue retention. It means how much of your revenue from your existing customers are you retaining, excluding upsell. Now, for example, how much in the same 3 months last year did you sell to an existing customer versus how much have you sold in the same 3 months of this year? And if you've sold more, that's great. It means you've grown that customer. If you've sold the same amount, it's a good indication because you've been able to retain that customer. But if you've sold less, it means that you've lost some business from that customer. And so this is a very important way to track whether you are retaining your customers and growing them, or whether you are losing your existing customers. Now, net revenue retention is very similar to gross revenue retention. Gross revenue retention excludes upsell, whereas your net revenue retention includes your upsell or your cross-sell. Now, think about it this way. Let's look at Netflix. Most of us have got Netflix now. And what Netflix will do is they would look at how many customers did they have at the beginning of a period, maybe a year or the same time last year, versus how many of those same customers do they still have as customers now? And that would be the gross revenue retention number. So for example, if they had 100,000 customers last year, and of those 100,000, they've got 95,000 of those now, then that means that they've got a 95% gross revenue retention number, which is a very good number. DSTV, on the other hand, we know that they're bleeding customers, and so maybe their gross revenue retention is closer to around 60%, which is not a very good gross revenue retention. Net revenue retention is, I have, from those customers that I had at the beginning of the year that have remained, how many of those have I been able to sell to a higher package, i.e. how many of those have I been able to make more money from? And that shows true growth from your existing base. So interestingly, Companies with subscription or repeat businesses, like I spoke about Netflix, or I spoke about MultiChoice or DSTV, they track this obsessively. But it does not mean that if you're in the manufacturing industry or if you're in logistics, that you cannot track it. You can do it on a quarterly basis, or you can do it on an annual basis, or you can look at how much on average has this customer spent with me in the previous 12 months versus the current 12 months. And is that going up? Great. Is that staying the same? Good. Or is that reducing? Not good. Why are my existing customers who've already worked so hard to acquire and to sell to, why are they buying from someone else? Are they buying from someone else? Or are they spending less? Or maybe, there's macroeconomic factors at play, but it's all important knowing your business, because that can even lead into how you sell to new customers. All right, so we use both GRR to track. So GRR shows about stability, and NRR shows about the growth potential that you have. So those are the main metrics that I'm going to, or that I've covered. Let's just recap them. It's your customer acquisition cost. What's your cost to acquire a customer? What's your lifetime value of that customer? And is that a healthy balance? Then it's what is your customer satisfaction and what is your net promoter scores? And if you guys don't have this, it's a really good idea for you to maybe start implementing, asking your customers, how satisfied are you with my product? How satisfied are you with my service? And it's those customers that are not satisfied that you may get a golden nugget that improves your service and your product for all of your other customers. And then lastly, it's your revenue retention. How well am I retaining my existing customers? And from those that I'm retaining, am I selling more to them? All right, now let's look at a couple of strategies to grow existing customers. So number one is people buy from people. So it starts with the relationship, particularly in the B2B space. Deep relationships matter. Regular business reviews, quick support responses, and showing that you genuinely care about their success will cement loyalty. A logistics client of ours said a monthly check-in call uncovered opportunities and issues that would have been missed otherwise. And so being in touch with your customer is the number one way for you to understand, are they happy? And if they're not happy, what can I do as a business to make them happy before they go next door and buy from the company, from my competitor? Okay. Tied to that is being proactive in customer success. So don't be in reactive mode, where you only hear from a customer when something's wrong, at which point they might already be halfway out the door. Instead, actively manage their journey. Ensure their onboarding is smooth, they're actually using your product or service fully, and they're seeing value. Many companies now, and not just in the software space, in manufacturing, in FMCG, in logistics, they have customer success teams or account managers for this reason. Their whole job is to make customers successful and happy, which directly drives retention and upsell potential. Speaking of upsells, the third strategy is upsell and cross-sell, but you've got to do it smartly. This isn't about pushing something the customer doesn't need. It's about insight. Use your data to see what would help them. Customers who bought X also benefit from buying Y, but make sure that Y truly fits their needs. This isn't about just making more sale. It's about adding more value to your customer. And this is where timing is important too. So maybe after a success or a milestone, you introduce an upgrade. In retail, for example, Amazon's customers also bought. When you go into Amazon or you go into Takealot, at the bottom after you've added to your cart, there's a customers also bought. A little simple example of how you could use something that is hidden to drive additional sales. Because remember, an existing client is more likely to consider a new offer, especially when they're a happy customer, because you've earned trust and credibility. Okay. And finally, we've seen this actually grow in massive leaps and strides in South Africa over the last 5 years, is loyalty and rewards. So we often think of these in consumer context. Look at Checkers 60/60, you look at eBucks, you look at Discovery Miles. But in the B2B space, they can apply the concept too. Think about volume-based incentives or preferential pricing for long-term clients, or think about early settlement discounts. The idea is to reward customers for sticking with you And this not only encourages them to continue, but also to consolidate more of their business with you. Interestingly, South African firms are doubling down on loyalty. Our loyalty program market is expected to double in value from 2024 to 2029. That just shows how important businesses are at placing retention of customers. And the bottom line is, if you invest in your customers' success and reward their loyalty, they will invest more in you. Okay. The other side of loyalty is the data that you get out of that. Think about a Checkers 6060, for example, or Checkers the Extra Save card. Every time you swipe that card, you're getting maybe R1 back here, R2 back there. Maybe you're saving $5 a purchase, $10. Doesn't mean all that much to Checkers, but what they know about you is they know how you spend, when you spend, where you spend. And in the modern age, data about your customers' spending habits, how they buy and how they pay, is absolutely vital to inform both your existing sales strategy as well as your retention of customers. All right, so how can you use TradeShield or similar tools to drive expansion? Well, you can spot upsell and churn risks with usage and payment data. So technology is our friend when it comes to scaling customer growth. So firstly, the analytics. You're likely to have a treasure trove of customer data, like we spoke about. You've got their purchase history, their product usage, you've got support tickets, you've got finance queries that they've raised. And so analyze it. Find the signals that indicate a customer might be ready for an upsell, or even that there's an issue. But for example, a retail supplier might look for customers consistently hitting their credit limit or buying the same product more frequently. And it's a sign that they could either buy in larger volume or they could add related products. On the flip side, analytics can flag customers who haven't ordered in a while and whose usage is dropping. Those are at risk, and you might prevent churn by intervening early. And then next, automation. We can't personally monitor every customer in real time. It's impossible as humans for us to do that, but software can. So set up triggers for key events. For instance, if a customer's monthly usage jumps or monthly spend jumps, maybe that's the time to automatically send them info on your higher tier plan, or to have a salesperson give them a call to discuss increasing their credit limit. And if a big order failed to repeat this month, have the system prompt an account manager to reach out. Why has this sale that's happened consistently over the past few months not happened this month? Automation ensures that no opportunity slips through the cracks and no warning sign goes unnoticed. So even when you're managing hundreds or thousands of accounts, automation really is your friend. What it does do, the likes of AI, the likes of automation, it allows you to do personalization at scale, which is critical. Customers can tell the difference between a generic blast and a tailored message. But with modern CRMs, with modern AI, you can automate personalized message, like a quarterly summary to a client. Hey, you've grown your business with us by 15% this quarter. Here are suggestions to save more. Or we've noticed that you've been buying this. This is another product line that could expand your offering. Many of our customers are doing this. So it shows that, one, that you're attentive, and two, that you're adding more value beyond just what you're wanting to sell to them. Remember, a key is customers don't always want to be sold to, but if you show them something of value and you make them interested in it, then they will buy from you. It's easier to have someone buy from you than it is to sell to someone. So now let me try this to a TradeShield example. So in our domain, which is trade credit, a big way to grow an existing customer is to extend more credit, but when it's prudent. So we use data and automation to do continuous credit assessments. And instead of a manual yearly review, our system crunches financials, payment behaviors, judgment information, a whole lot of different information, that can automatically flag, hey, customer A is low risk and has been paying on time. They're at 30% of their credit limit, and they're buying from competitor, or they're buying in the industry, they're spending more. We can increase their credit limit. So this automation has let clients safely increase sales to good customers without increasing risk. And we're going to go through 2 case studies shortly, which shows exactly how a local company did that in one of our customers using data to drive expansion. I'm just going to pause there because I've been speaking for a bit. Are there any questions? Does anyone have any comments or anything that they'd like to add?
I find nothing in the chat, but we can open the floor. If you do have a question, just raise your hand and I will allow you to unmute your mic. Oh, there Patricia said, hi, this is Patricia from Namibia. I've started the process of loading a customer via the platform. However, my customer did not get any email notice from the system. I need urgent help. Okay, perfect. So not necessarily specifically on ROI, but Patricia, I'm going to get my team to message you any minute now so that we can help you.
Okay, great. Right, let's jump right into it. I do have a Q&A session at the end and hoping that we can take some questions or comments. So let's look at a few case studies. So one is we had a client which was a fast-growing South African logistics provider, and they wanted to grow sales. They wanted to do that without taking on more credit operational risk. Their credit term was manually reviewing accounts infrequently, so credit limits for customers stayed relatively low, just to be safe. And as a result, some good customers actually wanted to ship more with them, but they were constrained by those credit limits. They'd hit the cap and shipments would pause until payments cleared. What would happen is, because when shipments need to move, they need to move right now, they need to move today, more often than not, their customers will go to competitors of theirs, and they'll then go and make that shipment happen through those competitors. So they've lost sales opportunity. And so what do they want to do is they want to grow sales whilst not adding more credit risk or operation risk. And so their challenge was conservative credit limits and manual process restricted growth. They feared bad debt, and they felt that they needed more staff to scale. Okay, so what was the solution? The solution was implementing a trade shield with them. And I mean, this is not a trade shield sale, it's just giving you a real life case study of how they gave them a holistic data-driven view of each customer's credit risk and payment performance. So instead of relying on gut feel or annual financial statements or management accounts, they started seeing real-time analytics. For example, which customers always paid on time, where they were nowhere near to defaulting either with the existing, with this customer or elsewhere. We set up automated workflows so that if a customer was low risk and constantly reaching the threshold of their credit limit, an increase would be recommended automatically with appropriate approval levels, but far less red tape. And essentially, the system said, this customer is good for it, give them more room to buy from you. And that increase can be granted in the matter of minutes, making sure that your customer does not go to your competitor, they continue to buy from you. So the results were fantastic. They managed to grow credit sales in 4 months by 20% to their existing clients, because now those clients could buy more on credit and grow their own business. And guess what? Their collections actually sped up. Their DSO improved by 8% because now their credit controllers and their credit team had more time to spend on following up and collecting cash rather than doing these recommendations or these reviews on the account. And so there was no trade-off between getting paid slower. And better still, all this was done without adding any headcount. So automation handled what an army of credit analysts might have done manually. So they achieved more revenue with the same team and decreased their DSOs, and it was a clear win-win-win. The customers were happy because they could place bigger orders seamlessly. Our client was happy because it was more sales, healthier cash flow, and no extra overhead. And this really highlighted to us how smart automation can unlock expansion in your existing customer base safely and also deliver real results. So that was the first case study. The first case study was really about growing your existing accounts. The second case study is interesting. It highlights the power of efficiency and speed in unlocking growth. So this client of ours was a large wholesale distributor, and they import and supply goods across the region. From them, time was literally money. They found that a chunky credit approval process was a bottleneck. For example, if an existing retail customer wanted to place a big order that required an increased credit line, it involved forms, manual reviews, maybe even on high-value customers, a committee to sign it off, a credit committee to sign it off, a process that could take days and sometimes weeks at a time. Now, in the meantime, the customer might be sitting idle or even turn to a competitor. Similarly, new customers were slow to onboard because credit vetting was manual and long-winded. So by implementing a fully digital credit application with automated decision making, essentially move them from paper to a fully online system. And a customer, both new and existing, could submit a credit request through the system, and would instantly pull all of the necessary information and pass that through the system in a consolidated way that's easy to make decision. So the result in this case was 95% of all credit applications got processed in under 30 minutes from the time that your customer has provided all information, and many of which were done in less than 10. And compare that to the previous several day turnaround. Now just think about, if you can sell a month earlier to a new customer, that's an additional month worth of sale that you can make. Now, similarly to your existing customers, if you can sell quicker to them, you can grow, you can make a sale a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month earlier than you initially would have. And that could have anywhere from a 4 to an 8% impact on that revenue for that customer during the course of a year. So, the speed had a direct impact in sales. Their credit sales grew 18%, approvals dropped from weeks to hours, and customers loved the fast, seamless experience, driving more business. So this case underlines how streamlining processes for existing and new customers not only improves efficiency, but directly drives more business. It's about removing friction. Often your customers could buy more from you, but you have to make it easy for them. Customers will buy from two places: whoever makes it easy for them, and whoever gives them the most value. And very often we speak about cost, and in the absence of value, there is a cost discussion. But where there is sufficient value to a customer, cost becomes secondary to the value that's just been provided. Right. So what are some of the change management that you need to do from moving from a new logo focus to a customer growth? So it's don't just land, expand. Winning the customer is just the start. The classic funnel thinking of just closing deals and moving on to the next deal. Of course, you need that in a business, and every business needs that. But the result is sometimes your existing customers feel ignored after signing, and the company misses opportunities to nurture and grow that relationship. So instead of having a land and expand, we need to have that's the philosophy that you need to be able to have with customers. The second is breaking silos. Many times we sit with our teams, with our customers, and credit don't like how sales do things. Sales feel that credit are the bottleneck. And really, there's this constant tussle and this constant back and forth that happens within the teams. And really, that's not great for business. What's great for business is if everyone is focusing on the most important thing for the business, which is generally bringing in more sales, bringing in more revenue, contributing to both the top and the bottom line in the business. So breaking those silos, it's aligning the sales, service, finance, and operations around customer success, and it's not just closing the deal. The third is reward retention. Companies are changing metrics and incentives internally. So instead of solely rewarding new sales, they're also rewarding renewals, upsells, and customer satisfaction. For an example, an account manager might have a target net revenue retention or gross revenue retention number to maintain. And based on him or her maintaining that, they will then get an incentive based on that. So some firms even tie a portion of commission to a customer renewing to ensure sales rep don't just sign any deals and disappear. They sign good deals that last. Okay. And lastly, it's a mindset of long-term thinking. This can be hard in a quarterly driven or a monthly driven business environment, but it does pay off. It might mean, for example, turning away a prospect that isn't the right fit because they'll likely churn and cost you later, and focusing that energy on expanding a current account where you can add value, or investing in an enhanced program that doesn't show immediate sales results but improves retention down the line. Leadership needs to champion this philosophy. That customer lifetime value is more important than just this quarter's new sales. And when that sinks in, teams start to make decisions differently in favor of keeping and growing customers, not just landing them. And then lastly, onto my last slide, is I want to leave you with some framework-oriented thinking to apply in your organization. So, first take a step back and map out your customer's life cycle with your company. From the moment you sign them, and that's actually the end of the sales funnel, but the beginning of the customer life cycle, through to when they hopefully become loyal advocates. Your common stages is onboarding, the period right after the sales where you get them set up and comfortable, crucial for setting the foundation. Their adoption or engagement, where they start using your product or buying your goods, and they get the service and that product or service regularly to ensure that they get the value. Expansion, points in time where you can grow the account, maybe after they've achieved some success, or as their needs grow, or as you've earned some credibility with them. Renewal, if it's contractual or a subscription, you definitely want to track that. Or even if it's not, you want to track how have they been buying this year from how have they been buying from me last year and the year before and the year before. Am I retaining and upselling to this customer more effectively than I've had previously? And then advocacy, when you're so happy, when they're so happy that they promote you to others. So ask yourself, do you have a plan or playbook for each of these stages? If yes, maybe onboarding is weak. Let's fix that because it affects everything downstream. Or if you're not deliberately looking for expansion opportunities, you might need to formalize that process. By mapping out your customer journey, you can see where the issues are, where you need better tactics, more attention, and where you may need to strengthen either processes or systems to be able to make it a satisfactory, and not only a satisfactory, but a happy journey for your customers. Next is assess your maturity. Are you reactive to customers' issues? Are you firefighting? Or at a basic level, maybe you don't have dedicated staff. Sales or support are wearing the customer success hat only when a problem arises. So communication might be only when necessary and metrics are not tracked. But at an emerging or intermediate level, you might have a customer success manager or an account management team, and they're assigned to a client from post-sale. And some regular check-ins and some key metrics, like some of the ones we've spoken about, could really give you a leading indicator when a customer is not happy and when you need to do a little bit more work with them. And lastly, invest in enablers. That includes people. Train your people up to upsell in a consultative way. Hiring customer success people who have the skill set to nurture accounts, because it's not just going and selling, but it's about nurturing relationships and nurturing accounts. And this includes processes and playbooks. Like we said, knowing your customer journey, knowing what needs to happen at each of those legs in the customer journey could be key to where you want to get to the end game, where a business where customer retention and expansion is systematic and constantly improving. That's a business that becomes more and more profitable each year. And whatever new sales just comes into a really great business that is nurturing and growing existing customers. So just to recap and key takeaways. So before we move to Q&A, first remember that your existing customers are your most profitable growth source. And existing customers, it's lower cost, higher profit. You've already sold to them. You've already got them onboarded. You've already got pricing agreed with them. It's therefore easier, where possible, to go and sell to them. And watch the right numbers. Retention and upsell rates are vital in telling you what the real growth story is. Lead with data. So let the data do the job of what you would normally do manually. Spot the safe credit increases and churn risks automatically. Second to last, think long term. The first sale just starts the journey. It's that lifetime value, the LTV, is what wins at the end of it. And then lastly, the mindset, making sure that everyone is pulling towards the same end goal of happy customer, more sales and retention, and that everyone owns that customer growth. It's not just sales. Yeah. All right, that's it from my presentation. I'd love to move to a bit of a Q&A, or happy to take comments. Was this anything that, were any of these applied in your businesses? Are any of these missing in your businesses that you think will add value? I'd love to hear some thoughts.
I'd like to just say something, Neil. People listen to you now and they think, sure, this is a fantastic presentation. it's a compliment to you, who is now one of the leaders of our business, that this is what we live. It's not just you that have prepared something to present to our clients. I see this happening in our business every single day. How we live this that you have just spoken about and how it works. And that is vital. So it's not just a nice talk, it's actually a life story that you have told this morning about TradeShare. And that is where the truth is in something like this.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Martin. And I mean, that's 100% true. You know, when Amy had asked me initially to do this webinar, the reason why I had said yes is because this is something that we at TradeShield, all of us, feel so strongly about. You know, customer satisfaction, adding value to customers, making sure that customers feel that you're supporting them on their journey is absolutely vital. And yes, whilst our business may be slightly different to many of our customers' business, we're more a subscription-based business, or a SaaS business, as it's called, a software as a service business. Many of what we do in our business holds true regardless of what your industry is. You could be a consulting business just selling services, and it holds true. You can be a business just selling commoditized goods, and it will hold true. So, you know, thanks for that, Martin. And you know, I'm glad that our customers get to see that this is something that we hold so true in our organization, and it's not just you know, a presentation that we've put up to fill a 45-minute gap.
I guess I'll start with a question while we wait for others if they have questions, is what happens if your business doesn't have a customer success team? Because that's a relatively, let's call it, new term within the industry. If I go back 5 or so years, customer success wasn't a thing. And then we'll come to you, Lisa.
Great question, Amy. I mean, whether you've got a customer success team that's called a customer success team or not, someone is managing your existing customers. And it's very rare in a B2B business where someone's not managing your existing customers, and where you completely leave your customers to their own device. So maybe there's an account manager, or maybe the salesperson then becomes responsible for managing that account going forward. So just because the term customer success is a fairly new term, not only in the tech industry, but also, you know, throughout a business, there always has been someone that has been responsible for the customer complaints, for the customer issues, for the maintaining of the customer relationships. You know, I would shudder to think that there's any successful business in South Africa who have not spent time nurturing the relationship of their top 20% of their customers in some way or form. You know, so what I think we're trying to highlight here is, just because you may not have a customer success team or someone with the title of customer success or account manager, does not mean that your business has not been doing it. And this is where hopefully, you know, a couple of people on the call can think back and say, even though we don't have a customer success manager or customer success team, I've been doing this, you know, as the account manager, or I've been doing this as the credit controller. I've been having to manage the customer when they're unhappy. Or as a credit manager, you know, I've been having to deal with customers to get their next deal across the line, so that we can grow their business, so that they don't go to a competitor. You know, so in some way or form, someone on this call has been playing that, even if they don't have that customer success role in their name.
Well, perfect. Thank you. I'm going to open the floor to you, Lisa. You can unmute your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi,
you
Lisa.
can.
All right. Hi. Just a quick question. When it comes to maintaining the CRM, how long after the first sale should you consider doing a customer visit?
Oh, that's a great question. Martin, do you want to take that one? Happy for me to?
No, I'm happy for you to take it, Rahil.
Great. So, I mean, Lisa, it really depends on your business, and it really depends on the customer that you're onboarding. You know, if it's a large customer with a large footprint that's well known, maybe you don't ever do a customer visit, you know, because it's not necessary. Or maybe it's a new customer that you haven't traded with before, and they're asking for a big credit limit, and it makes you a bit nervous. At that point, maybe you'll do the site visit even before you grant the limit. You know, I would say that it all depends on what is right for your business, for that customer. And I don't think that it can be a one size fits all approach. I think what you've got to look at various factors. Is this company a well-known company? Do they have a footprint in the industry? The credit limit that they're asking for, does it make sense? Does it justify the sales that they want to make? Are they well supported? Are they well backed? If all of those things are ticked, maybe you don't ever do a customer visit to mitigate risk. Maybe you just do it from a relationship building and a retention process. And so really, you've got to look at a customer on their merits. What we've got in our businesses is we've got customers that require different levels of complexity. And your customers that have a high level of complexity, maybe that there's a person that's assigned to them that is a little bit more technical. Maybe your customers that don't have as much complexity but require a lot more compliance, maybe compliance to credit regulations. Then we'll get someone who's got a more of a compliance mindset to manage that account or to be involved in that account. So what I would say, Lisa, is it really boils down to what the customer profile is and how you feel it best to manage that customer, either because you need to manage and mitigate your risk, or you need to grow the relationship and manage the relationship. And what I would start with is understanding your customer base. And once you understand your customer base, you'd be able to know, I need to manage my risk there. Therefore, I need to do proactive meetings just to make sure that nothing's happening in the business that I don't see elsewhere. Or I need to go and meet with this customer and take them out for coffee every 3 months, because that's an account that we can double in revenue over the next 6 months or next 12 months. It really boils down to what the individual needs are.
I think also adding to that is we call it like the onboarding phase of a customer. And in our onboarding phase, we have certain things that we want to do. So what we do straight away, as soon as somebody signs on with us, we immediately get in touch with them to say, thank you, and we're excited to be working with you. Of course, if they're buying something from you, to be slightly different, to say, thank you for being in touch with us, and making sure that you've got all the right documentation, you know who you're communicating with. So I think straight away, as soon as a deal is signed and permission is granted from whoever needed to give that approval, to touch base with them and then decide how do you need them to understand or use your product. If it's simple, like I sell tires and here is your tire, then that you want to make sure that they know where to place their orders online. You want to make sure that the customer knows how to use your platforms, how to use your systems, how to get in touch with your support team. So we would call that part of the onboarding phase. And if you put together a structure to say, every time someone signs with us, this is the process that we would follow. And then, it can be shorter instances in the beginning to say we touch base once a week. And then after the first month, we touch base every 2 weeks. And then after the second month, we touch base once a month. And then we move into a quarterly process to say, this is what our touch base with this customer looks like. And then you can decide what information you give to the customer in that period of time. Is it their number of purchases? Is it, that they feel comfortable with the system? Is it if they have people using your product, like, for example, TradeShield, has that people been trained? Have they got access to the system? Is there any technical difficulties? And if it's a product, to make sure that the product they've received is in good order, that they got what they were looking for, and, just making sure that you are aligned with that customer. And that personal touch is where that building of a relationship comes in, and that will eventually lead to what the entire conversation has been about, which is retention of that customer, and that lifetime value.
All right, thank you.
What Rahil also said is critically important is to engage with the client before you start selling to him. Why is that so important? Because if you as credit people don't understand your client's process, because now your sales guy's engaged with him, but he engages with procurement. And you've got absolutely no understanding how the finance side of that business works. And that is where your engagement is going to be, because you're going to expect them to pay you. And if you do not understand their processes, you're going to wait for your money. So I always recommend that in the 40x plus years that I've been in credit, to the credit staff, that if they hear that sales is engaging with a very large client, go with them. If sales engage with procurement, you engage with finance. What is your processes? What do you need from us? By when do you need it? Make sure you know your client. Make sure you map the process and that there is absolutely no opportunity for the client not to pay you, but more opportunity for the client to pay you, and you don't become the problem.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I see a
There
couple
is
of questions from Malusi.
Yes,
Or points.
absolutely. So,
Malusi,
how
go for it, James.
I was going to say, either we can open up her microphone or his microphone to say that the question was, how important is developing a clear and compelling brand identity resonates to target audience regarding growth of clients as retention?
Oh, that's a good question, Malusi. So when you've got an existing customer, so let me just be clear, building a clear and compelling brand identity is always very important. You need to know as a company what your brand identity is, who your target market is, what's your values, what's your mission, what is it that you want to do? And secondly, having that out in the industry and out in market is very important. What I would say, however, is it's less important to your existing customers who are very happy with your service and with your product. You've already sold them, even if you don't have a strong brand, you've already sold them on service, and you've already sold them on value. And so, I'd like to think that, our trade show customers are getting a lot of value. And we're seeing from our NPS results that customers generally are happy and generally are promoters of our product. And as a result, maybe they won't care that much about a compelling brand identity. For new customers, absolutely. But maybe it's slightly less important. It's not that it's not important, but slightly less important to have a compelling brand identity for existing customers as compared to giving them great service and great value. There's nothing that builds your brand more to your existing customers than great service and great value. Okay. Your second point is how important is the mindset shift from volume to value to ensure overall value is delivered? Great question. And this also depends on your business. You have businesses that move in bulk. And in that case, volume would always be the driver of revenue and always be the driver of overall value. And you get some businesses, maybe they deliver on services, or maybe they don't deliver in terms of volume, but the quality of service, the quality of experience becomes important. So, that then it all becomes what's important to your customer. Logistics, someone in the logistics space who their customer just wants to ship 10 shipments this month, but 30 shipments the following month, 50 shipments the third month. Unfortunately, in those cases, it's all about the volume, not really necessarily as much as the value. But, in other instances, the value does become more important. So again, it all depends on your business, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. But if you know your customers well enough, you know their pain points, you know what keeps them up at night, and you've got a very good solution or a product that solves their needs, then this is something that should be relatively straightforward, not easy, but straightforward to solve.
And then the second point was how important is the mindset shift from volume to value to ensure overall value is delivered?
Thanks, James. Yeah, I think we just touched on that point now.
Okay, so just making sure that you didn't miss that part. Okay, excellent. There are no further questions in the comment section. I'm not sure if anybody else would like to raise their hand or, and maybe leading on to this is we would be more than happy to get a guest speaker who is our head of customer success, who is responsible for the next phase. So once you then have signed a deal with a customer, what do we do? And maybe we can guide you on how our customer success team and onboarding team work. And I'm more than happy to put that into the diary in the next couple of weeks so that you can see, once you have signed the deal, what do we do to make sure that that client is what we refer to as adopted, meaning that they know how to use the system, that they know where to go, and what I was mentioning to Lisa earlier. So I'll put that in the diary. I'll chat to him in a minute and just let him know that he's going to be our next guest speaker, just to follow on from this ROI conversation. And then, as always, we will post this in our Knowledge Center. So should you wish to go back to the recording, you are welcome to do so. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach out to us at support. or you can get in touch with myself or Martin, and we'll put you through to Rahil should you wish to do so, or even just from a coaching perspective, to say, even though this is not specific to the TradeShield platform, but we would like some coaching from Martin on our credit teams, or on our credit policies, or from Rahil on, how to look at our return on investment, how we can better use TradeShield to grow our existing customers, and where to focus on that, on what your risk appetite may be. So just reach out to us or your account managers. We're always here to help you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ames. My last thing that I'd like to say to everyone is the next time you get an email or you get a message to say, how likely are you to recommend? I hope that you remember this, and I hope that you spend the 2 minutes to give them a recommendation, because someone out there cares enough about you as a customer to care whether you are happy with them or not, and whether you are a promoter or not.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
great
Have
day.
a super Tuesday. Thank you, Rahil. That was absolutely awesome.
Thanks, Martin. Appreciate it. The opportunity to come out and speak to our customers is always great.
Yeah.
Hey, cheers, everybody. Cheers, Martin. Cheers, James.
Well,